Trial of Linda McIntyre of Fresno, accused with her husband Donald of using a cattle prod to toilet train her 4-year-old son and then beating him to death. That trial is set to begin September 12th. McIntyre was convicted of first-degree murder May 25th for the death of Brandon Pierce and has been sentenced to life in prison. Prosecutors say Mrs. McIntyre did nothing to prevent the abuse of her son. The child was taken to a Fresno hospital and placed on a life support system following the November incident. He was taken off the system a week later after doctors determined that brain death had occurred. County juvenile officials are up in arms over a photograph currently on display at a local art gallery depicting a naked baby sitting in a cat litter box, grimacing at a cattle prod being poked toward her. Artist E.Z. Smith, a founding member of Spectrum Gallery, posed his 8-month-old daughter Piper for the photograph, thinking the picture would represent an amusing look at toilet training. Smith calls his artwork satirical. However, several social service workers don't share Smith's humor and feel the photograph implies that child abuse isn't really such a big deal.
I thought there might be one of two words of complaint from people that perhaps didn't have a very highly developed sense of humor, but certainly nothing as much as seems to have happened over this particular photograph. I've taken other photographs which I thought would have been more controversial, and this one struck me as being relatively tame. And evidently the newsworthiness of this photograph relates to an item that was in the news recently concerning a case of rather violent child abuse.
Smith is referring to the 1982 murder of 4-year-old Brandon Pierce, who died from injuries inflicted by his stepfather. A cattle prod was among those instruments used to toilet train the child. Smith says he wasn't aware of that.
I think I'll probably leave it up for the remainder of the show here at the gallery. As far as regretting having taken it, no, I still think it's a pretty funny photograph.
Police in Hanford.
Local artist's photograph of an 8-month-old infant has come under attack by social service workers. Action News reporter Juanita Stevenson tells us, for some, the picture is a grim reminder of one of the worst child abuse cases in Fresno County history.
E.Z. Smith's photographs are unusual, sometimes controversial. The pictures are his funny way of looking at life. That's what he was attempting to depict with this photograph of his 8-month-old daughter sitting in a box of kitty litter with a cattle prod being thrust at her.
I was trying to do a satire on toilet training, and it seemed to be a very exaggerated concept of what somebody might do while trying to toilet train their child.
What is E.Z. Smith's exaggeration was reality for one Fresno boy, and that's why child abuse officials are so upset.
My initial feeling of outrage about the picture was the insensitivity of that photographer in light of Brandon Pierce's death just a few months ago.
4-year-old Brandon Pierce died last fall here at Valley Medical Center. He was a victim of child abuse. During the last 2 years of his young life, Brandon was abused by his stepfather, a man who tried to toilet train the child by beating him and using a cattle prod.
I didn't really take the photograph with the idea of getting across actually doing harm to a child.
I think it sort of makes a mockery of what we've tried to do. We've tried to get it across to people that children have rights too, that parents don't have a right to just do anything they want to their children.
But while the photographer sees it as art, others find it insensitive. They have no legal recourse, so all they can do right now is complain. Juanita Stevenson, Channel 30 Action News.
When is an artist free to express himself, and when does that expression go too far, if in fact it does? Those are questions you have to answer yourself, and may even be crossing the mind of Fresno photographer Ernie E.Z. Smith, who made headlines this morning for a picture he took a year ago. The picture, now hanging in the Spectrum Gallery on North Washon in Fresno, shows a child sitting in a litter box with a cattle prod pointing in her direction. This morning, Fresno Bee drew parallels between the photograph and the 1982 murder of a 4-year-old Brandon Pierce, who died after his stepfather, convicted of first-degree murder, used various instruments, including a cattle prod, to hurt the child when he was slow to toilet train. Smith says his work wasn't done to show a condoning of child abuse in any shape or form.
Well, I don't really feel that this photograph is about child abuse. I feel that it's a humorous photograph and totally absurd, somewhat like a cartoon. The fact that somebody evidently did use a cattle prod on their child is an unfortunate and grisly coincidence.
The Bee quotes Linda Zivanich, supervisor of Child Protective Services locally, as saying, quote, the picture is a real slam to the face of all the community education we've done about children's rights, end quote. But as far as county response made directly to Smith, the artist says there hasn't been any.
The only reactions I've heard here at the gallery have been positive. The only negative reactions I'm aware of, I read about for the first time and heard from the Bee reporter. So nobody has complained to me personally or to anybody here at the Guild.
The Central California Photographers Guild, which owns the Spectrum Gallery, displays its artists' works rotating on a monthly basis. This particular collection will be shown through September 25th. Next on the 10 o'clock news, Clovis concerned